and retirement is essentially an income problem, not an asset problem. But we're going to start off today with Mike via text message. My wife and I always managed our budget jointly, but handle our retirement and inherited assets separately. My wife decided to hire an AUM fee-based advisor. Should I join her to keep our plans in sync? Mike, thanks very much for the text message. And I think, Janet, I think we'd start here by just saying there are all types of scenarios. There are all types of situations in a household. But generally, we're going to encourage spouses to work together when it comes to all manners of finances, but especially retirement planning.
Yeah. So one of our questions back to you, Mike, would be, to ask yourself why you guys have taken a separate approach in the past. And it may be that you need to continue to take a separate approach in some ways, but there are some things that even if you want to handle your money separately, that really need to be done together as a household. And let's kind of talk about some of these situations, Scott. So it might be that, you guys are on a second marriage, and so maybe you have what I'll call a Brady Bunch, blended family. You've got his kids and her kids, and that impacts inheritance and what all of that looks like. But one of the things that comes to my mind is Social Security, that regardless of how you feel about handling your investments separately, Social Security really is a household question. And Mike, I don't feel like the Social Security Administration does a really good job of explaining that to people. You get your statement and your wife gets her statement. And there's nothing that you get without asking for it that says, oh, by the way, there's this claiming strategy that involves the spouse's benefit. So it really is important in that way, and some others that we're about to talk about, to look at this from a household perspective, Scott.
Yeah, and I think that it is important to draw a line between the way the assets are titled, whose possession they are, and how they get incorporated into an overall retirement income plan. So certainly your retirement accounts are going to stay separate in terms of your wife's name's going to be on hers and your name is going to be on yours, and that cannot change. An IRA remains titled in the name of the person who opens it, because that has got to be dealt with from a required minimum distribution standpoint, which is tied to your age and your life expectancy. So that's going to stay in individually registered names. And I do think inherited assets are a little bit different, so I would also go that route too, because if you've inherited that, if let's say Mike has inherited money directly from his parents, then I do think that money might have a purpose that is different than the overall household, right? So that could be a one-off situation as well. So there are some variables in that, but when it comes to the overall retirement plan, I think it's natural to make a transition into retirement income planning together, especially if you, as you tell us, you're already managing your budget jointly. So you're used to working together on spending and developing that plan, and retirement is essentially an income problem, not an asset problem. So you have to work through the expenses of your retirement, what you're going to have to be dealing with there, and to come to an agreement on what your desired income is going to be. What does retirement look like? What do you want to do? How do you want to spend your time? And that helps determine the cost of retirement.
Absolutely. So it's really important to just begin to have those conversations as a couple. And, Scott, sometimes we still have people who will, even if they're on the same page in understanding the spouse's investments and that type of thing, that they want to handle those differently for whatever reason. So we want to be respectful of that, but also to help you understand that at the end of the day, this is money that will be coming into the household to cover the household expenses. And there are some variables that are really impacted by the spouse.
Yeah, so the retirement income plan certainly needs to be built from a household perspective, and including both of you on that. So I do want to kind of get to the second half of the question as well, and that's the part that he says, my wife decided to hire an AUM fee-based advisor, and should I join her or to keep our plans in sync? I do think generally using the same advisor and consolidating all of that under one umbrella makes sense. But I do want to kind of speak to the AUM fee-based advisor. People who are listening or watching online may not exactly understand what that means, but AUM is an acronym. It stands for Assets Under Management. And the AUM fee-based is basically the advisor is charging a fee as a percentage of the assets under management. So, for instance, if there's $100,000 being managed, they might be charging a 1% annual fee on the balance, which would be $1,000. So you're paying that advisor for the management of the investments and potentially some planning. So the advisor would charge fees as a percentage of those assets managed. But that's not the only type of fee arrangement, and it doesn't mean it's always best for every dollar that you have invested.
You're exactly on point, Scott. I think it's important for investors to understand that your advisor, in my opinion, should be able to make a choice on how you pay them, meaning you pay them in the least expensive way possible relative to the investment that you're getting. So let me give you some examples. And I'm not recommending any particular investment here. It's just I'm going to use some examples so you understand the difference in how an advisor is compensated. So an advisor is either going to be compensated on fee-based, which Scott has already talked about some, or on a commission basis. We at Gen Wealth do not believe that one is good and the other is bad. It depends on how you're going to utilize the investment. So I'll use real estate as an example. We have, for a long period of time, for a portion of a retiree's plan, we will often use something called a non-traded REIT, a real estate investment trust. Again, I'm not making a recommendation, just talking about the compensation on this. So if you're going to buy a building, then do you want to buy it one day and sell it the next, or even buy it one day and sell it in a few months? You're not looking in this aspect of your portfolio, you're not looking for a quick turnaround on this investment. This is more of a buy and hold approach. So do you want to pay your advisor a one-time commission, or do you want to pay them a percentage of that each year for maybe a 10-year hold? So in that example, the least expensive way for you to own that is on a commission basis rather than on a fee basis. Now let's flip that. And let's say that you have some investments that are going to be traded regularly. You're looking for very active management, so an advisor might buy or sell frequently in that account. In that case, you don't want to pay a commission because you don't want them going, hey, if I do this, I really think you need to sell this one and buy that one, but if we do that, it's going to cost you money just to do the buy and the sell. So in that case, it's better to have a fee-based approach. So that's the reason behind our thought on not thinking that one is inherently good or bad and the other is the opposite, but there is a time and a place for each approach, and it's very important that you understand the pros and cons of both.
So back to that question, I would encourage Mike to focus more on the services that are being provided than on how they are going to be charged fees. And for instance, are you receiving a written retirement plan as a part of those services from that advisor? How the advisor is compensated matters less than what the advisor is going to do for you. And we do believe as planners here at Gen Wealth that the plan should dictate the investment strategy and even the type of account potentially that the investments are held in. So I'd work through that, make sure that your wife has chosen well there, and then if she has, certainly I think I would recommend keeping the plan in sync by having the same advisor to work with, because it is a relationship at the end of the day, and working with an advisor that has both spouses in the same room with them makes sense for sure.